I think, are we late for dinner? Not yet? Okay. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Spilling the Beans. Today I'm sitting down with my boy Brian Manley, an absolutely amazing dude. He's got a great investing company. He's got a lot of great things going on based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and has an amazing team that has been with him for a very long time. So I'm excited to sit down, see what he's doing differently today than he maybe was 12 or 24 months ago, and also how he's built such a rock star team and maintained that commitment from his team over time. So let's go match up with Brian Manley. Brian Manley, how you doing, bro? Good to see you, man. Dude, you're one of my favorite people, all right? So I want to start out the episode with that. If you're not connected with this guy, you got to be connected with him. He's such a good dude and a ton of fun. We always have a blast whenever we hang out. And dude, the first time that you've been in the mastermind for a while, but the first time we really connected, you were up in Cleveland. Not even for a legacy event. It was for Mark Evans' event. And then I can't remember, but your flight got pushed out or something, or you weren't leaving until the next day. And I was like, dude, I got an extra ticket to the Tribe game. Come to the Tribe game with me and a couple of my buddies from high school. And then it got rained out, but we just hung out and had drinks and hopped around, bar hopped all night and had such a good time, man, and really got to know each other really well.
Dude, I think the coolest thing about that, you get to see who a guy is when he's with his high school friends, right?
Yeah.
They don't care who you are or what you're doing.
They know how much of a dipshit I am, dude. They didn't meet me from seeing me on social media in this elevated position. They know how all the mess ups.
They're like,
my mom screaming at me, dude, getting arrested for toilet papering houses, dude, all the good stuff,
all the good stuff that there was. Luckily, it wasn't recorded. Right? Mm-hmm. But man, I remember that, man, and I left that going, man, this is a real dude.
I appreciate it, dude.
Seriously.
No, it's but we got to really have a lot of fun, man, and we've always had a blast whenever we hang out at any of the summits ever since. And we're talking for 20 minutes before we even start recording here about so many good topics. I wish we had 2 hours, but I want to give as much value as possible in the next 20, 25 minutes here. Sure. And so what I want to start with is, God, there's so much to unpack, right? But I want to start with your story. I think your entrepreneurial journey is very, very important. And then I want to kind of dive into how you built such a ride or die team that is just, they love you, man. And I think that's a big testament to their loyalty to you is because you're a loyal person, right? To them. And it's just being able to, oh, hey, there's no good girls in the world. I can't find a girlfriend or a wife. Dude, you need to be the person that attracts
100%.
a great spouse to you, right?
100%.
If you can't find good employees, it's because you're not the leader that attracts good employees to you. So we'll dive into that. And then, and I think a lot of the other stuff that some of the other things that we talked about, I want to dive into all of it. But first, let's unpack your story. How did you become an entrepreneur? Because you weren't always, right?
No, you know what? I thought I was. Right, but I mean, I'll give you the condensed, right? So I wasn't a full-time entrepreneur, but I was always a hustler, right?
Yeah.
So in second grade, I was selling drawings, right? Kids and...
Your drawings?
Yeah, my drawings.
I love that.
4th, 5th, 6th grade, I was selling soda and stuff, right? To buy books at the book fair. I was a nerd. You remember the book fair?
Yeah, dude.
And so
little Goosebumps books?
Yeah, dude. I used to go to the book fair, they sell soda out of my backpack and all that stuff. Sold music, sold clothes out of my trunk. I always hustled, but I didn't start my actual full-time entrepreneur journey until probably eight years ago, and it was as a result of being fired. Again.
So all right. So this leads me to a question.
Yeah.
And you become an amazing entrepreneur because you're a great. I don't know. Maybe it's because you're a hustler, right? But do you think entrepreneurs are born or are made?
No, I think they're born. I mean, the reason we lose jobs or be politely disinvited to come back was, I wanted to do things my way. I wanted to create, and I always felt frustrated, right? I had one job where there were guys there making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year in the sales job. And it never mattered to me because I was like, I hate this place. I won't be here long enough to make that.
Right.
I just knew I wouldn't be. So whenever they'd have the meetings and talk about, somebody I was like, I'm counting down, right? I was counting the clock down from the first few months until I was in the fit. So I think they're made. I think you can learn to take things out, but there's a special tolerance. I'm not very risk averse. I can lose and go, all right, I learned something. And I think A lot of people aren't that way. I was just always frustrated and couldn't put a name on it.
Yep.
You know.
No, I agree. I think anybody can make $1 million a year by having real estate or having some sort of business or like I truly believe anybody can do that. But I think it's like there's I don't know, some sort of screw loose in a few of us
100%.
in order to get to the next level, right? Like Jeff Bezos is a psychopath, right? Like Elon Musk is a psycho, like not because they're crazy, but because they're just so different. There is something different that they're born with that has this internal drive. And I think if you want to build an 8, 9, 10-figure business, I think some of those people are just kind of like born that way. But I truly believe that anybody could like it's not fucking hard to go and buy a couple of rental properties and sit on it for 30 years and become a multimillionaire, right? Like anybody can do that, but to build a business and have the fire within to deal with the shit storm that you deal with every single day is very, very hard to come by.
Well, because you have to know, like going in, that you're going to eat shit, right?
Yeah.
You just got to be like, which is my favorite fork,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you just got to know today's Thursday, we use the big fork, right? But there's going to be some every single day, right? So, like, I remember the first deal in it being full-time, and I'd been fired, my partner, we got fired on back-to-back days, right? And it was like, well, what do we do? Because, you know, I at that point I was going, do I want to be that guy that's 40, starting over somewhere?
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't have the cachet of relationships and pull. If you've been somewhere a long time, you're starting over, you're the new guy, you're a grunt. So the first deal I remember that we did, we jumped into it. Let's do this, let's flip houses. 3 days later, had a house, right? Way over improved it. Was learning off the internet, right? Had never flipped a house. It was just, we're gonna flip a house, and 3 days later bought one, right?
Yeah.
Lost a shit ton of money on it. And then my first thought was, we gotta do another one so we can pay this back, right? I never had the thought of quit.
I was gonna say, because most people would be like, oh, I'm never touching another piece of real estate ever again in my entire life. But you were like, no, like, okay, well, we learned, like, look at all the things that we screwed up, right? Look at all the things, all the lessons that we learned. I'm not going to make that same mistake the second time.
100%.
I think that's a big part. Like, you got to realize. I was talking to Carlos Reyes the other day on the phone, and he's like, "Dude, my real estate got kicked in the balls last year. Like if I didn't have my other businesses in order to float my real estate, like I was writing checks for 60 grand, 80 grand, 20 grand, 120 grand across the board." And he goes, "Thank God I had these other opportunities, the other businesses, and all this stuff." And I was like, "Dude, you and I both know that anybody who's been in the game long enough knows that the wins don't come with some losses also, right? Like that always happens. You have to understand that you're not going to always win. There's always going to be L's, and if you have any level of wisdom, most of the L's come at the very beginning, right? Most of the L's come when you're first getting started, and you don't know to don't let the contractor get ahead of the money, right? Don't overpay for a property. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't blah, 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 blah. Like all these other different things that you're like, oh, well, I don't buy on main streets anymore because they're harder to sell to an owner-occupant
100%.
in the future who has a bunch of kids playing in the friggin' yard, right? Like there's things like that you don't understand to look for at the beginning that all of a sudden business gets easier
100%.
after 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Because you don't make those same stupid mistakes.
Right.
Like you have standard procedures that you follow and wisdom that's been gained because you've been in the business long enough.
Dude, I'm like jaded like Archie Bunker's wife, man, right? like when something dumb happens, I just go, yeah, more coffee, please. Like, I feel like dead inside, right? I don't even have a reaction anymore.
I'm the same way.
It happens, I'm like, oh, okay, that happened today. I always say to my team when something weird happens, they're like, well, what do you think? I'm like, dogs bark. Like, shit happens, man.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. I don't care, right? It's the funniest thing. I really don't care. And so, you know, I remember we had a deal, and we've not lost them very many. I think like 3 ever, right? And, you know, I have to remind and go, dude, nobody bats like, we're batting like 980.
Right.
It's okay. Nobody's 100%.
Right.
That's part of what comes with it, and that's okay. It is investing. It's not promise. It's not real estate promise. It's investing. And sometimes, you know, wonky things happen. They change like we were talking about with all these crazy interest rates. And you just roll with it because that's part of it. I don't want to win all the time anyway. It gets boring.
Dude. Hey, having a little spice thrown into the mix. Yeah, man. Yeah. No, but I think you know, when you're looking at the deals that you have going on, and you made a great point of like, I'm batting 980, right? If you're in the major leagues and you're batting 300, you're getting paid $4 million a year, dude. Yeah. Like, what? And that means you're out 6 times out of 10, right? If you're batting 400 in the major leagues, you are one of the highest paid players ever.
Ever.
Right? Because of being able to get up and not being afraid to still swing the bat, knowing that there's a potential of getting an L or getting out, right? And you come into business and you're like, oh, well, I didn't get 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Dude, that's not real.
It's
right?
not life.
It's not realistic at all in any capacity to think you're always going to win and never lose money. It's part of the game. You just need to make sure that you're in more than you're out, right?
Yeah.
You got to make sure that you got a couple more W's than you do have L's, and then you're staying ahead.
That's it. I think casinos only win like 52% of the time.
You're right. It's 51, 52.
Right? 51, 52, and that's billions of dollars. Being armed with that, I just go, oh, okay, this is part of my, my 48 over.
Great analogy.
It's not a concern. I just know it's part of, I think the one thing that people do is they get so paralyzed wanting to have the perfect answer, the perfect plan. And I wish people, one of the things that I knew my plan wouldn't be the one that I finished with, right? I knew without a shadow of a doubt, whatever the plan is that I have right now, 12 months from now, that ain't gonna be it. Like the world just does wonky things, and you gotta be like, okay with it. I think people get paralyzed going, I wanna have the perfect plan and I can't lose. And I go, losing is a part of it. I look at it and I go, and if I lose, what's the worst case scenario? What does my pipeline look like? If I lose on this one, if I get 85% confidence in it, I'm pulling the trigger.
I agree.
I
agree.
That's it.
Here's the thing, man. Like when I think about it, I read a book. It's called, what's it called? It's like 5 questions to ask yourself before you die or something. It's like they interviewed a bunch of people like on their deathbed and asked them all these different questions. And one of the ladies was like, listen, I looked at things as what's the worst case scenario versus the best case scenario, right? And more often than not, the worst case scenario wasn't that bad, and the best case scenario was absolutely amazing.
Do you think that's a normal thing that people do?
No, I don't think it is. Because everybody's like, well, let me look at the worst case scenario. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
They don't weigh it against the best case scenario.
Now, do you do that? Do you weigh the worst? Like, do you process that way?
I do.
And I do too.
Exactly, right? And I think, is it a muscle that you gain? I think it's like there's a little bit of perspective there.
Yeah.
But I think about doing a business deal. All right, listen, I don't want to lose on a business deal, but what's the worst case scenario? Well, guess what? I got a $100 million deal that has gone sideways over the past 12 months. And I've had to come in, dude. And this is a deal that I never had to do. It wouldn't change my life on the upside at all. Right? But it can drastically adversely affect my lifestyle on the downside. Right? And I'm like, why did I even do this deal in the first place? But all right, but I didn't ask myself that question, right? It was ego driving me of, I want to do a $100 million deal. And so I signed a loan, and then the operating partners, they got defrauded by the management company, and then they just needed some help on not being able to raise money and all this other stuff, right? So I've had to step in and take over operations, infuse a bunch of money, and now we're looking at different exit strategies and all this other stuff, right? Let's say worst case scenario happens. Give it back to the bank. And first of all, it's a non-recourse loan. Can they find recourse? I don't know. They'll try to, right? They'll try. Let's say they can, and they can come after me personally. And let's say they wipe me out, dude. At least my worst case scenario stops, right? At least there's a floor of me going to zero.
Right.
Versus the best case scenario in any given deal is limitless income potential. I could take this building and make it worth $150 million or $200 million, like potentially, if I can figure out creative ways to exit it and all this other stuff. And it's like, I didn't ask myself that question when I did that deal down. But when I look at other businesses and I'm like, hey, do I want to invest $100,000 in this marketing company, this media business? Maybe I could lose my $100,000. That's the biggest. That's worst case scenario.
Right.
The best case scenario is we exit for $10 million in 3 years from now, and I get 50% of that, which is $5 million on a $100,000 investment.
Right.
That's a pretty good investment. Like, dude, I like that more than the downside is painful to me. You know what I mean? I guess that's so it's like weigh that out. And on that $100 million deal, the upside wasn't big enough for the downside risk, so I shouldn't have done that deal.
But it was ego?
But it was ego.
There you go.
Right? But every other time where I've actually paid attention to that, and I'm like, what's the best case versus worst case? And the best case far outweighs the worst case. Dude, I'm moving forward, and I never regret that decision.
Yeah. I say to people all the time, I say, man, ego is a greedy little bastard that never gets full.
Bastard.
Like,
dude, it's
it
horrible.
doesn't get full. And I work like I'm conscious about not letting ego drive me to do things, right? I'm conscious about it because there's so much of life I did. You know, what's that?
I've been humbled by that,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Where it's like, I don't need that anymore. Like, it's created so much clarity in my life of businesses that I want to invest in, of like opportunities I want to pursue or quickly say no to, right? Because of that deal. Now, would I have that clarity if I didn't go through that? I don't know. So it's like, even though it's an L, it's still a W, right?
Did I ever tell you my coffee story? My Starbucks? Dude, so this is where I had like a Yoda Zen moment, right? So I'm in, this is 08, 09, lost everything, so like 2010 point. And I didn't have Wi-Fi, right? I couldn't afford it anymore. My one like luxury would be like go to Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee, right? And it's like $2.54 or something like that. But what I would do when I got done is take my cup home and save it because they did refills for
Free
like 54
refills.
cents.
I love it.
And the next day I'm like, I got 54 cents, right? And I'm like, I don't have Wi-Fi at home, so I'm there trying to start a business.
And you kind of feel like a baller sitting in Starbucks for some reason. Like, I'm just like sitting in a cafe and working. You know, I'm gonna
unless you don't have a cup of coffee. If there's nothing in front of you, feel poor, right? But if you got like the cup, like that little cup makes you like, I'm rich, right? So I'm doing something important. So man, I'll never forget, man. I'm in line. I'm in line and I'm getting ready to buy. And my cut probably, I think about it now, it probably looks all ratty and shit. That's why they give you new cups now, because of me, I'm sure. People like me. But I was in line and I'm getting ready to buy this cup of coffee, man, and my card declines. And this is the refill.
54 cents.
On 54 cents. I'm making six figures the year before. My card declines for 54 cents. There's a line behind me of all the people in the morning rush getting ready. They're answering. I'll never forget the grace the young girl showed me behind the counter. She gives me the look in the eye. She just kind of gives me a little like that. And she just fills my cup up. Doesn't bust me out. I get on. Dude, if that was the extrication of all unnecessary ego right there. It was, dude, you went, and I went and I looked at my phone, because I got Wi-Fi. And I had 17 cents in my joint accounts.
Wow.
And, I wasn't tracking how much money I had because I was like, I ain't got no money.
I know it's zero.
I know it's zero. I was like, I got $1 though, I'm sure. And when I didn't have 54 cents, all the stuff worried about people and worried about, my ego and what I have to do, right there, I was like, none of it really mattered. But then I had the mindset of like, this is where I am, it's not who I am. So I felt
that's
bad
powerful.
Yeah, it's where I am.
This is where I am, not who I am.
Yeah.
Where you are in life doesn't define you as an individual. It's just where you are in the process.
Yeah. And it's a process. You're gonna eat shit. What, big fork, little fork today? It happens, but I don't think I knew that then because I've been flying high. I didn't know anybody, like there were no people around me that went to college, right? The only people I knew who went to college growing up were like my teachers, right? And then even once I got to college, it was just other students. Like I didn't know any, I didn't have a network of people who had done things. So, once I get out and I'm making really good money, I'm first starting to see some places in the world, they're flying me around in cars and picking me up and all that stuff. I'm feeling pretty fancy. To go to where you can't buy, like I didn't even know when payday was. And then to go to, boom, this. When I carry over to my business now, I have such a high risk tolerance now. When I look at something and I go, what's the worst thing? I go to zero.
I go to zero.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. But the difference is now, I didn't know how to go, okay, I need $50,000 tomorrow.
Yes.
I didn't know how to do that then. And now I can go, I'm at zero, and I can send a text.
Now you got connections.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to buy this deal. I'm going to buy it for $100,000. I need to borrow 110, right? You take 10 G's, put it in your pocket as acquisition fee, buy the deal, turn it over. And dude, now you got runway.
And it's crazy
because you learn skills.
That's it. Because now when I text people and I go, they'll go, send in the money, which would have been unfathomable to me a few years back, And so when I try, I think that's a thing that people who maybe at home don't know, is that when people can watch and they can see, because people are watching. I get people all the time who inbox me who I would never know they're looking at anything. Right. They're just quiet. They're lurkers.
They don't like. They don't comment.
Right. What's with that?
Hey man, I just sold my business. I got $500,000. Can I put it with you? Right?
Like who are you even?
Where are we? No, man. I've been following you for 3 years. I like what you say. You're a family man. You got a great vibe. Let me throw some money with you. You're like, dude, where did this come from?
Yeah. It's but just like I think one of the biggest things you learn in this space because what happens is like don't be a douche, right? Pay people their money. Right, do what you say you're going to do, and then I think one of the really cool things about you, man, I never told you what attracted me to your space, man, is just I've got a real good BS meter, man. Like it's 100 out of 100 times I say somebody's going to get fired, a contract or whatever. I'm like, they ain't gonna make it. And they do something. 100 out of 100. You guys read about that. I'm like, yeah, he's one of those. I'm like, this is a good dude. And all this time later, it's one of those things. It just holds true, man. And I think one of the best things about this journey is to not be in that lonely space when you start to. You take that. I don't know which one is the pill that gives you
the red pill.
One?
I think
it's the red
I think
one.
It's the red.
If not purple, you take the purple pill. If we get it wrong, you take whatever the pills and you start to really see things. It's really hard to get folks who were like I was probably 10, 12 years ago to see all the stuff that you thought you knew. It's really not the way things work. It's really not the way you think works. And I think what I did in my business is
expand on that. Yeah.
Well, so I have a friend who's a banker, she's branch manager at a bank. And she was one day just on a random call telling about her process about what she's going to go out and buy a property. And I was like, I'd never do any of that. And being the bank person, well, this is what I would do. And this is the kind of loan I would take. And I would go, I've never used a loan for a bank for a single house.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of, I've never used and this is what I pay. And then I make money out of thin air. And it was a back and forth. And she was defending. Now, here's a person who you can look and objectively go, all right, this is a person that's bought and sold a whole lot of these. You've witnessed it happen. But it's very hard for people to overwrite the thing that gives them comfort, that makes them feel comfort and mastery. And I'm in a bank, and this is part of my identity.
That's a great point.
And this is what I can do. And it's real hard. It's easier to trick people than to untrick them. You can even tell people you tricked them, but once people have decided that I'm comfortable with this reality, it's hard for you to even tell somebody, no, that was a joke. When somebody adopts it and says, this is my reality, it's hard to pull them out of it. Even when they watch. And I say that's a lot of times why. I do remember at the last mastermind, I struggled with the one when Pace was there. And I told one of my struggles was trying to bring people with me and downplaying a lot of things that I've done because I wanted to be approachable for these, all these people that I knew. And it didn't matter. They still wouldn't move. And so when you ask that question, going back to entrepreneurs, made or born, and I go, if I had me around, I'd have been all up in this, hey, teach me, I used to ask people with nice cars when I was like 15 or 16, what do you do?
What do you do?
Hardly anybody does that. And I go, you love them the same, but I just don't think people they're ready and willing to let go of the reality that they have. And if I said, I just text somebody, I turn money down from people. I go, it's more work for me to get money from you than to just say no and get it from somebody else. I remember growing up, getting money in a loan was you went hat in hand. And I hope Mr. Banker gives us some money. Right? Now, and it's like, people with money really need to make it work. Well, nobody knew had money. I didn't know that was the world. So it's really interesting. It's just really interesting.
Dude, I think you make a great point on the people who want it will ask for it. They'll pursue it. I had a new window put in my house on Friday, just a couple days ago. And on Friday, there were 3 guys that came to install a single window, right? First of all, I don't know why. There are 3 guys.
You're fancy. You probably had a giant window.
No, it's not. It was not it was a normal all-American window, dude. It was a hurricane window, but still, it's it shouldn't have been 3 guys. 2 of the guys showed up, carried the shit in, carried the shit out, walked out. And there was this one kid who's like, oh man, you have a beautiful house, right? He was a Hispanic kid. So his English was a little bit broken up. He's like, oh, you have a beautiful house. He goes, can I go outside and take a picture? I was like, yeah, man, absolutely. Come on, let's go take a picture. Takes a picture, because I'm on the beach area, right, of Charleston.
Fancy.
And he comes back in, he goes, hey, can I ask you a question? I was like, well, that is a question, but yes, you can ask me another one. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't bust his balls like that, but I thought about it.
You thought about it.
And he goes, well, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I just buy rental property. I was like, all you got to do, bud, is just start buying rental property. I was like, I was a contractor like you once. I used to paint houses. You just need to start buying rental property. And the more rental property you buy, the more money you'll make, right? And it just starts compounding, right? And he goes, oh, okay, thank you. Now, will he take anything? Will he take that and do anything? I don't know, but hopefully, maybe I planted a seed with a kid who's willing to ask. Because you get the balls to ask, you probably have the balls to do. You know? And that to me gets me excited for entrepreneurs, right? Who are they just need, dude, they have the internal fire, the internal desire. It's just what's the 4th combination on the lock, man, that just like needs to be turned, and then it opens up the vaults, and then they see the big picture.
But you know, so you just said something to make me think about. I used to think that people who had, resources were snobby, mean, rude, wouldn't talk to you. And I find they're so willing to just tell you, look, what I do. Like once you get to past the point of, hey, it's about money and you want meaning, right? You don't know this when you don't know anybody like that, but people will absolutely tell you, look at this resource, do this. This is what I did. And love talking about their journey. And you don't know that. And so many people, I think, they just understood. Most folks who've gotten to where you want to go will help you if they see you taking action and moving. It's when you sit at home and do nothing at all and say, guide me and walk me the whole way, that suddenly I'm like, you're left on red, right?
That's the key, dude. The key is like, if somebody will take a step, bro, I'll take 2 steps.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the people who aren't willing to take a step and they just want your time that I'm like, I gotta cut it off, right? But if I see some effort, if they show me something, some sort of desire, and they're willing to have the balls to ask the question, dude, that's a hard thing to do. Is walk into a client's house as somebody, the third guy on a 3-person team to install a friggin' 1 window. And barely speak English to talk to the guy who owns the house. Like, it took some balls, right? And I acknowledge, like, I think that's super cool that he had the balls. So, like, I can see that he's got the fire within him in order to learn, in order to want more and desire more. And, dude, and I think anybody who's been on the journey, who's self-made in that capacity, would always take the time and give the effort
it's a fraternity.
in order to pay
It's
it
a fraternity
forward.
for sure.
I think
like,
so.
When I see somebody and they're grinding and out and they reach out and I can look and I go, you're trying. Like when you realize I can have a 30-minute conversation with you and completely change the trajectory of your entire life. And I know it will, because I know it took me 8 years to learn what I'm telling you in 30 minutes. And it can completely, like, it's powerful. And for me, it's one of those things where selfishly, the carrot and the stick, one of those things, and what's in it for me is I feel good knowing I can do this. I feel good. But
it's okay to have self-interest in that, dude.
That's how animals are made.
Vibes, bro. That's amazing.
All animals self-interest. I mean, oxytocin makes us want to cuddle. Otherwise, I'd be like, you're making me high. Get away. But oxytocin says, let's cuddle. It's self-interest. But for the guy, I don't know if this is an angle even looked at, but for the guy also for a man to come to another man and say, what do you do? Because there's a certain part of that where ego has to be subjugated a little bit. And you're acknowledging, hey, you're better off than me. You've done some things I haven't done. In a way, what do you do is, will you help me? Will you teach me? I think there's a component, element to that. So it's always hard for me to say no to somebody in that situation, in kind of those circumstances, because it's just a hard thing to do. I think guys, a lot of times our egos and we puff up. And we're not going to go to another man and go, can you help me? Like, we don't do it. We don't do that,
So what has, like, how have you learned in your journey, right? Did you have mentors? Obviously, you're in the mastermind, right? Like how do you say, hey, I don't have all the answers. Like, how do you get past that in your own friggin' head and be like, dude, let me go and find a mentor. Let me go and find a group that works.
So I'll tell you this, the very first, I told you, like, the first house I got, it was like 3 days, and it was like, let's get a house. And then my first mentors were Bigger Pockets, podcast, all that kind of stuff. I didn't know anything about half what I'm doing now.
There's a lot of great free content out there, man.
A lot of it. And what makes me crazy, a lot of people, hey, if you've ever reached out to me and I told you to go to Bigger Pockets, I wasn't BSing you. That's how I learned. I just listened to free podcasts. You know what happened to me is about like 2.5 years in, everybody who I used to look up to in this space, because I didn't know there was a whole guru world and all that stuff.
You don't really know that until you've been in it for a
little bit. I didn't know anything about that. And I remember everybody I looked up to here locally, and I'd reached out to. I found in just a couple of years, my business has surpassed all of those folks from the beginning.
Wow.
And I was kind of starting to feel that, I need some other fish to swim with, and I didn't know where to find them. I saw an ad on Facebook, and there was an event happening in California, like 2 days out, 3 days out, and I was like, I'm going to California to find Tribe. And I just saw an ad on Facebook and drove, not knowing what I was going to get, but I knew it was going to be a bunch of real estate investors. I ended up joining a mastermind there, and that was really kind of the first exposure to people who, even if they weren't officially mentors, they became mentors in that space. They exposed me to other people who had been to places I hadn't been, who had done things I hadn't done. Some of them younger, some of them older. It didn't matter. And that's why I told you immediately, as soon as I saw your stuff, I'm like, I'm going to chunk down this to get in here in 3 days and look at this. And then after that, I was like, let's do it. And it was a pretty quick decision because at that point, that's when I learned the power of, and the funny thing is, when you're a flipper, you either have a bunch of money or you don't a lot of times, right? And I think at that point, I was already doing like 5, 6 houses at a time. I didn't have the money to join, and I called a friend to borrow it. And this is how this is why I was so impressed when I hung out with you and your friends. I called one of my old high school friends, and I was like, dude, I'm going to join this thing and I'll have the money. And he's like, I'll send it to you. There was no paperwork. It was, here you go, he sent the money. And
he knows your character, dude.
Yeah,
he knows what you're good for, right?
And that's what I always say. I don't hang out with anybody who doesn't have old friends, right? Because people have been around long enough to see who you are.
That's a great point.
Yeah. If you don't have old friends, you're not getting me as a new one, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just
I like
not,
that.
right?
I like that.
And that was one of those things. And when I got to see, like you and your environment and stuff, I'm like, here's again, because I think, I'm some years older than you, and I say, oh, this is the mentor. In fact, the mastermind is the whole reason I start buying multis. Things got wonky at the end, but the 2 multis that I bought, it was because, proof of concept, here's people I can watch. If I screw this up, I can go and call people and say, hey,
can you pick up the phone and hit up Tim, right?
Help me change my diaper. It's like, but yeah, that's kind of how the journey started. It was just kind of, I got to a point of loneliness and felt isolated because I didn't know anyone else. And then I realized I was a really small fish once I got in there. But that's what I needed to keep getting drug forward.
I think that whole people who are entrepreneurs, it's so lonely out there without knowing that these ecosystems exist, right? And in most industries, they don't exist because they're not making enough money. Fortunately, we're in an industry that can actually make a lot of money. In a couple deals, dude, you could pay for a mastermind many times over, right? Just from a couple of key connections, private money, deal sourcing, or operations partners, whatever, suppliers, whatever that looks like. Like, it's very easy to make your money back from a real estate mastermind just because of the industry that we're in. But I think, just for me, it was like I always felt isolated. I always felt like I was on an island. And when I get invited out to a mastermind, I was like, holy shit, all these people have the same problems that I have, just at different varying levels, right? And some of them are further ahead, or some of them are at the same level. And I can learn from, it wasn't one mentor, it was 15 mentors
100%.
in the room, or 25 mentors in the room. It was like a light, I was like, I can never leave this community because it's so powerful. And how much of an impact, and I'm just not lonely anymore.
I'm just not, that part, lonely. It's one of those things that I can tell you what I love about the people I met in this space. So it's kind of the way I've built my business. There's a whole Tim Ferriss, 4-hour work week. Tim's have been good in my life.
All right. Not bad. Cheers.
But the entire thing was built around like this premise of, this nebulous, seemingly disjointed business that is location independent, right? That's how I have an employee here who's 60 years old, who's been with me now just 2 years. I've never met her. She lives here in Phoenix. I've never met her.
Wow.
She lives here in Phoenix. I've never met her. I've only met one person, right? But the entire idea was, hey, let's build this thing where you can travel. I've been to a ton of countries. I've been, and that gets lonely when you don't have a sphere of people
who can travel with you.
Right. And even if you go and say to older friends, hey, they don't have the time or the flexibility, even if they have the finances, and you don't want to make the relationship awkward by offering to pay it. And it's like, I wish you'd ask. But as men, we often don't want to. We don't want to be indebted. We don't want to feel like we owe. So they just pass. And so it's like amazing to go and say, hey, let's find this location that's really, really cool. And there's going to be 30 people just like me, 40 people, 50 people just like me, hundreds of people just like me, and I'll find that best friend in there, in the business stuff. But it's invaluable.
It is,
it's invaluable.
No, it is. It is. I agree. So let's bring it home. I'd love to know. You mentioned, hey, I bought some multifamily properties last year. I love this because I'm seen as the multifamily guy, but the reality is it's a means to an end, right? Like the goal for me isn't necessarily it's not all about multifamily. It's about financial freedom. It's about living a lifestyle that serves whatever your desires are and fulfills you, right? Like that to me, I don't care what your widget is. I don't care what your product or service is. I care about you pursuing the highest and best use of your life, right? And how you can make a bigger impact and how you can stay fulfilled and help other people get fulfilled. Like that to me is the center of the onion versus multifamilies on the outside. And you mentioned, hey, dude, I did a couple of multifamily deals, went great, and then interest rates got wonky, and I couldn't double down. And I thought, hey, let me go and focus on my primary business, which I think is so wise, right? I think it's such a smart thing to do of like, let me make sure that the house is in order, right?
Yeah.
Let me make sure that this is taken care of. And then I can convey this to the team, which you were talking about offline, of like, dude, because our portfolio is in great shape, the cash flow from our portfolio covers everybody's salaries.
Yeah.
And nobody has to worry about losing their job because of economic decline. Nobody has to worry about pay cuts because of turns in the marketplace. What does the next 12 to 24 months look like?
Gosh. So that's a real interesting one, man, because I have this sickness that everything is fun to me, right? And building things and discovery is fun to me.
But it's I guess what I love is like you got the baseline taken care of.
Yeah.
That's a friggin' awesome. Like I don't think there's destinations. I think there's checkpoints. I think that's
100%.
an amazing checkpoint to hit. Like that's a monumental checkpoint to hit of being like, dude, everything's taken care of.
Yeah.
Now I can go and take risks or invest in things that can't affect this. This is like on its own silo over here.
Right.
Cannot be affected. It's not going to affect the team. But it allows me to go and pursue some of these other endeavors, right?
Yeah. So one of the things is I'm thinking about really getting into this coaching space. I actually wrote a book about some things.
You
about
should,
the
man.
coaching
You got a great interaction. You know, like
Appreciate
I have no idea what time it is even. I think
neither.
are we late for dinner? Not yet. Okay. But it's like, dude, I'm having such a good convo with you because you're such an interpersonal, like you got that personality and a conversational person, easy to relate to, easy to have conversations with. You're willing to talk real and help people, you know, and you actually give a shit, right?
Yeah,
like that
100%.
that more than anything makes such a big impact.
Yeah, 100%. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to wait before getting into that space is I never wanted economics to be the driver, right? It was always, if I don't feel like we're a fit, I'm not compelled to bring you on because I need the money.
I love it.
Right? That was one of the things I pushed out. And then it was, what's my avatar, right? Because I remember for me, it was, I feel like being in a corporate space and just feeling stuck and being talented and some other things, but feeling unfulfilled. I'm thinking maybe that's my avatar. Before I didn't know who it was, right? So moving into the coaching space, I've already taken some steps to start going down that path. I've got, a lot of people might know my main brand, but I've got 6 other brands that we all market through and we actually compete against each other, even though it's the same people in business. So maybe to grow some of those out, maybe franchise those off.
I love that.
I want to give myself a big goal that scares me. And I don't even know if it's realistic to go, all right, let's add 500 multifamilies, in the next 12 months. But I think I've got some pretty good tutelage and some pretty good resources to figure out if that makes sense right now or not. But I want to do something that scares me.
Dude, I truly believe, I think anybody who's at least bought one house can buy 100 units in the next 12 months. And I think somebody with your level of experience could absolutely put, I mean, dude, it's going to take some work, right? But I think you could absolutely put 100 or 500 doors into your portfolio over the next 12 months, right? Like things have tweaked, things have changed. It's not as easy to finance maybe today as it was 3 years ago or even, 18 months ago. But it's like, dude, you understand this stuff, right? Yeah. You understand creative finance. You understand how to source off-market deals. You understand seller motivations. You understand that stuff. You've been around the block many times in the single family. It's like, dude, it's not that different. It's just like adding a zero, and instead of underwriting a single family house, it's like you got 10 single family houses or whatever that looks like. Yeah. But I think it's like you can absolutely do that, and you have the network where, hey, I want to come and buy 500 units. Hey, guess what, dude? I got a deal in Texas right now, right? That you could come into, raise some money. I'll sell you 50% of it or something. Like there's unique people in legacy family, for instance,
100%.
where it's like, dude, 500 units, you could absolutely do that. Give me a shout, and let's joint venture. And you don't have to own 100% of 500 units, and you probably don't want to, because then you have 100% of the responsibility, the liability, the head of the, like, dude. If you own 25, 30% of 500 units, like that's a pretty damn good position to be in.
And and I actually operate that way now. Like my teams, and I'll talk about this a little bit more on Tuesday. Even every deal, nobody owns all of the deal, right? Everybody who touches it gets paid on that deal in every step of the way. and then there are eyes looking at the closer.
Yep.
Because nobody else gets paid until you do your job.
Yeah.
Right? But everybody, so it's kind of a way to.
So everybody's pushing the ball down the field,
Everybody's pushing,
man.
yeah. And it's like, hey, what are you going to do there? And I'll tell you one of the things that I did not used to do before starting down the path at Masterminds, and that was partnership and letting go of that. That was a foreign concept for me. Like I knew people did it, but to understand how it was done, which levers to pull, I was a really different way of thinking. And so a lot of times I empathize with people who look at the stuff that I do and they go, that's not how it's done, it's work. Because seeing things like that and going, oh yeah, I can literally go out and give away, here's equity stake, and this thing materializes out of thin air. I mean, that's the most amazing thing about what we do is making money out of no money.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I think the key there is like, I've had great partnership, like some amazing ones, and I've had some really, really not amazing ones, right?
Not amazing.
And I think the key there is like making sure you're partnering with people that have similar core values as you. Because if you have the same core values, you can sit down, you can talk about a shitty situation, then you can very easily get past whatever sort of adversities or hurdles that you're facing in business at that time, and be able to be like, all right, hey, let's move and jive. And I think the other thing is, so that's one, core values. The second thing is not people, by core values, I don't mean people who like to do the exact same thing that you like to do, right? You need people who are opposite you from a behavioral standpoint of like, hey, you're the sales guy, I'm the ops guy, or I'm the spreadsheet guy, you're the acquisitions guy, right? Like it's like people are like, oh well, hey, we both have sales personalities, let's go partner up. That's not a good partnership because you're dancing on each other's strengths, as opposed to complementing each other on each other's weaknesses, and like you're lifting me up over here, I'm lifting you up over here, and then that's how you elevate. And when I look at my team and I look at where everybody's skill sets are, I realize, oh, Matt Carlin's over here, Fatty Bumitri's up here, I'm right here, Nick Burton's over here, right? Like it's very Scott Hannes is over here, like all these people are all over the board on like a disc assessment is what I was going through my head right now. And on the disc assessment, we're all over the place, and that's why we have such a strong business, because we can fill any sort of behavioral type. We can attract people from every sort of behavioral type. We can manage people from every, and we can engage with outside folks of every single behavioral type too. So it's like making sure that your partner isn't stepping on your toes from a skill standpoint, and making sure you guys complement each other.
And that's a real key, and making sure that the understanding of, I think the language, because I had some challenges in partnership one time where I would express that we were different, and what the other person was hearing is, mine is better, right? So I think in all of that too, it's real important to show that you value the difference of it, because some people, I'm one of those people, I'm like, I don't really need you to pat me on the back a whole lot. Some people need that. They wonk out, if you don't pat them. I mean, I also know that they're valued. I think that's a really, really big thing, because in being different on that disc assessment too, what drives you and what feeds you emotionally is also different. And so, we complement each other, but if you don't get the feedback that you need, that breaks us as well. But I love that idea, and I didn't used to think that way in partnerships. My idea was always, hey, we're like, let's team up. Not a good idea, especially two of me. You don't want to do it two of me, right? But yeah, that's 100% right. And I think it doesn't even matter what you're doing. I don't care what business it is. If you bring a partner on, that's one of those things. Don't bring on somebody just like you.
I agree, man.
I love that's a nugget for everybody.
I agree. Well, dude, I'll tell you what, man, this has been so fun, first of all, right? And secondly, super informative. It's always awesome having you, like just having conversations with you. And I love that we were able to get you on Spill the Beans in order to share some of your knowledge and insights with the fam, dude.
I love it, man.
So appreciate you, man. Appreciate the relationship, appreciate the friendship, and just excited to see where things lead us over the course of the next 12, 24 months.
Me too!
Hey, I hope you got a ton of great takeaways. I'd love to see about it in the comments down below. And if this is helpful for you, it's probably going to be helpful for somebody else. So please share this, like the video, and spread the word. Like, we're always trying to give as much value to entrepreneurs and real estate investors as humanly possible. And it always helps us if the word is shared. So appreciate you. Until next time, see you on Spill the Beans.